we got food at home is like a lifestyle. How to plan meals for a busy week. When the chaos hits, you'll be ready to manage it. This sunflower butter, I love sunflower seeds. Maybe it's my type A personality, that self-induced chaos. I can't have it. Hi there, welcome to this video. I'm Jordan Ray. I'm going to give you a crash course on how to plan meals for a busy week. It's simple, but it's not easy because it takes effort. I'm gonna break it down like this. Figuring out what we want to eat for the week, creating a grocery list from those ideas, mapping it out in our digital calendar, and I'll talk through some ways to prep ahead. This video is a bit of a follow-up from the organized grocery haul that I did about a month ago. I got some good feedback on how helpful it was. And so I thought, let me do like a part 2, even though it wasn't really planned, but I needed to follow up on that because what I did was, so I started in a spreadsheet listing every week what I was buying from the grocery store and how much it cost. So I could really tally up what I spent for the week, see everything for the month at a glance, and actually reuse those lists if I want to in the future. If I want to replicate a week of meals that I enjoyed or that fit within a certain budget. And I started to do that about a month ago. So now that we've entered the month of May, I'm actually doing the same thing with my groceries. I'm going to track every week in May what I order, how much it costs, and what I ate and all of the meals, that I had planned. So last month ended up working out to cover 5 weeks. This month is going to be 4 weeks even. So I basically just duplicated my previous spreadsheet to a new tab. And that way I could start over with a fresh month. I deleted like the supplements and like the household stuff that I had listed. And you can see that I just have started with 1 week of groceries so far. All of the prices are in there. And the reason for me to actually put the prices into this spreadsheet as well, even though when I'm ordering groceries online, because I go for delivery, I can see it in my Amazon cart, is that I want to be able to not have to manually add all of the items to the grocery cart to know about how much a grocery list will cost me. So this is my way of just documenting, and I'll be able to come back to this in, the weeks to come, or even like next year if I want to literally repeat the same thing that I did. A reason why I really like to shop online for my groceries is I think that it helps me avoid like the impulse buys that I would have if I was in the grocery store and actually shopping and like, oh, this looks interesting, I want to buy this, or like, oh, I'm hungry, let me get that too. And then my cart ends up being $30, $40, $50 more than it would have been otherwise. I think that that's really been a hack for me, I'm not gonna lie. But I also understand, and I am not knocking going to the actual grocery store. I love a good trip to Whole Foods. I'm not even gonna hold you, but on a week-to-week basis, that's just not realistic for me. And I think that even if you have a busier lifestyle, because we're talking about meal planning for busy weeks, it could be really helpful for you to add items to your cart that you're gonna want, and things that maybe if you wanna pick out your produce on your own, I get that, but add the things that you don't need to pick out for yourself and just place those items for pickup if you're still gonna go by a grocery store. Like many grocery stores, to my knowledge, will do that. So anyways, as you can see, going back to the month of April, I did spend a little over $1,200 in groceries, which is insane, but I don't eat out hardly at all. And I did spend close to like $200 of that budget, maybe even a little more, in supplements, because I just ended up having to re-up on a lot of things over the course of that 5-week period. And Rashad's supplements, my other half, is also calculated into that because obviously we don't take the same supplements. We do different proteins, and I also do seed symbiotic. He does not do that, but he takes a multivitamin. And I also learned a lot about supplementation and the quality of supplements in school this week. I'm studying to become a nutritional therapy practitioner, and we had a time the last few weeks like uncovering how unregulated the supplement industry actually is. And so I lucked out and was needing to re-up on a few of my supplements anyways. Like I was getting to the end of them and needed to change some things up. So I ordered just last week some new supplements, and I actually put that in my previous vlog, the wellness reset, because it was a reset. Like I really had like a whole new supplement plan, but I did spend about $200 or more of my grocery budget on supplements. And that's what I think put me over that $1,000 mark that I had originally planned for the month of April. And that's for two people that I do buy organic and I do not eat out hardly ever. And I make almost everything at home at this point in the season of my life. And it just may not be feasible for like every household, and I really understand that. So definitely just take what I am doing as a grain of salt. I am not one to push like consumerism or like buy this, buy that, whatever. Like you really got to do kind of what works for you. And I have found that between Rashad and I, we're usually spending about $200, $200 to $250 a week on groceries. I'm also a fan of trying things, especially because I'm starting to work with clients and I want to make sure that I have tried and tested and tasted a lot of different things that you can get at the grocery store, or I've cooked with a lot of different ingredients or herbs, spices, and so on and so forth. And so every time I shop at Whole Foods, which is my primary grocery store, I try to get like 4 to 5 new things that I haven't tried before. So this week I got sauerkraut, which I have actually had sauerkraut before. It just hasn't been a staple in my diet as of lately. So I'm also trying this chocolate coconut water, which when I looked at the ingredients, when it came to my house, I usually look at it online. I realized that the ingredients aren't like the cleanest. I try to stay away from like the extra gums or the cane sugar, obviously. And that's okay. We're still going to enjoy this and work it into some smoothies. I am gonna do a little bit of grains this week. I usually opt to stay away from grains, but we're gonna do some white jasmine rice, tahini. I read up on that. That's a great drizzle for different bowls or salads that you might wanna make. I also got some more vegetables, and broccolini really isn't my vibe. However, I'm gonna give it a try because I've never actually cooked broccolini at home. I've always had it when I've been out, or it's like been like a big event where it's like catered and they do like the baby broccoli, and I didn't really like the way that it was prepared by other people, but I'm gonna try it myself and we'll see how that goes. And the thing that I'm most excited about is this sunflower butter. I love sunflower seeds, and so I'm really looking forward to trying this sunflower butter. Okay, so let me get into how I actually step by step plan my meals, because this system has taken me about a year and a half to really feel consistent and confident with. Not every single week is perfect, but especially on the weeks that I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I'm going to be busy. I have meetings, or I need to go and be places physically, I'm traveling. I try to make sure I get ahead of my meals, because there's this concept that if you have your food, your nourishment, your fuel taken care of, everything else will fall much more seamlessly into place. So I try to make sure I always know when I am eating throughout the day, throughout the week, and I'm not getting hangry if ever. So at the bottom of my spreadsheet is where I am keeping my weeks of meal ideas. So the way I'm starting to think about this is to do 2 breakfast options, 2 lunch options, and 2 dinner and 2 snack options. And at the very bottom, you'll see that I have focus areas for things that I want to focus on regarding just overall well-being, digestion, wellness, possibly even like fitness goals. Have a focus area, because I think that that can really drive your decision-making around nutrition. For dinner, I'm going with vegetarian options this week. I want to lighten up my protein load towards the end of the day and keep my dinner a bit more colorful and like light. And that way my digestive system isn't like working overtime once I get to the end of the day and trying to process some chicken or salmon or something that I had at 6 o'clock in the evening. I've been cooking down the apples or the pears lately. Kind of lightens up the fiber load just a little bit, making things a bit more easy to digest, especially if you're getting enough fiber overall. And then I always go for, I usually have about 2 smoothies a day with plant protein, but I might be a little rebel and mix in some whey protein this week, because I want to test what a reintroduction of whey might look like into my diet. Okay, so you might be like, well, how do you decide what you want to eat for the week? Like that's always a hiccup, I feel like, or a challenge, an obstacle when it comes to actually deciding what you want to eat for the week, because you don't want to commit to something and then you don't like it, or it gets old, or it's not easy to prep. And so I would say 2 things, or there's 2 ways that I get inspiration for my meals on a weekly basis. Is number 1, I will sometimes go to ChatGPT and just say, hey, this is kind of what I'm in the mood for. This is what I'm thinking, or I need really, really simple and easy to put together meals. I want to do a lot of one-sheeters this week, where you just throw everything on a pan, you put it in the oven and you bake it for 30 minutes. On a week that you have a little bit more time, it's not a busy week, you might be able to do a bit more experimentation or like cooking or like more involved recipes, right, on those weeks. That's maybe one way to get inspiration, is to lean into AI and see some of the creative things that AI can put in front of you that you may not have considered otherwise. So for this week example, I entered into ChatGPT yesterday when I was ordering my groceries or deciding, what I wanted to outline for my meals for the week. I was like, I do want something summery and sweet for one of my breakfast options, and I want a savory breakfast option. And then I made sure that it knew I wanted protein forward for lunch, and I wanted to try a grain, which is where the white rice came in. And then I said, hey, I want to do more vegetarian focused dinners so that I am lightening up my digestive load at the end of the day. And that's how I got with the lentil soup. And with the roasted veggies, I'll probably do like a teriyaki stir fry. So use AI. That could definitely be a cheat code. Another way to do it is if you're tracking your cycles, that might give you some ideas on how to eat for that particular week, depending on the phase that you're in. Or if you're managing an autoimmune condition like I was or am, and I needed to the last couple weeks really make sure that all of my recipes fit like the autoimmune protocol or anti-inflammatory ingredients. I was cooking more with turmeric and gingers and drinking a lot more herbal teas, and just making sure I was really staying up on my digestion and making sure all of my vegetables, I wasn't eating any raw vegetables, and even watching like my fiber and my fat intake, so that way my gut was a bit more calm. So lean into what your body is telling you that it needs and allow that to help you outline your meals for the week. Okay, so this next part should be pretty straightforward. We're gonna actually create our grocery list now based on the meals that we outlined. And so I'm scrolling up in my spreadsheet that I've created, and I have supplements. If I need any of those things, can obviously list that here. But for the list, I've made sure that I've gone through the meal outline that I have and listed out all the things that I need to make those recipes. I'm personally also going the extra mile in putting the quantities in my grocery list. And this is because if I want to share this with somebody, especially the people in my Fine Diet community like you'll be able to see exactly the brand that I purchased or the amount and the quantity, especially as I am scaling my systems and like my support for people. If I need to scale a grocery list to fit 2 or 3 people, so on and so forth, like I can do that because I've been able to keep track of everything. So that's why I'm so specific in this, is because I'm really making it my job to be concerned with the details. And I also want to double down on these lists that you're creating. If you decide to do a process like this, you can come back to these lists and you can start to see about how much you want to spend on groceries for the next week without having to actually physically go to the store or do some back of envelope math. You'll be able to do this even before you start actually clicking on items in your Whole Foods cart if you're doing it online. So I think that's pretty easy to follow and straightforward. All right, so now let's talk about mapping out this calendar. I have always said, and disclaimer, I've been a digital calendar girly for the absolute longest. I can't remember the last time I physically wrote my plans for the day on a piece of paper with a pen or a pencil. Just like, I need to be able to move stuff around and reschedule stuff and invite other people to the meeting or put details in the description of the meeting. And that way I'm able to, collaborate with other people who are involved. So digital calendars have just been the way to go for me for a very long time. I feel like a lot of us use a calendar for our work schedule, and that's absolutely fantastic. I would consider, if you do not already have a personal calendar, a personal digital calendar, that you add that possibly throughout the course of the year, because it's not going to happen overnight, but you start to work on it, and that way you can match your professional calendar with your personal calendar and see, okay, I have 3 meetings today. I want to make sure that I have leftovers that I'm going to eat, or I'm going to be able to eat something quickly. Or if I do need to pick up kava between my doctor's appointment and this meeting over here, like I know that I need to do that, instead of going to the doctor's appointment and not knowing what you're going to eat for lunch and you're just kind of like going with the flow. That's not the best for our body when it comes to our nutrition. It's just not. So being able to walk you through this and show you my calendar right now is perfect timing, because I do have what I would consider to be a busy week. I'm not necessarily traveling, but I do have schoolwork. I'm catching up with a colleague. I have some client calls, and there will be also some things that pop up on my calendar that are not here right now. I work out every day. I spend my mornings, in meditation, getting sunlight, listening to podcasts, reading. And I also have creative client work to do for brand development, websites that we're designing, and projects that we're working on with clients. And so real quick, shout out to my Rare Label t-shirt. This is my agency that I have co-founded and I co-run, and I am really like the chief brand officer for all of the projects that we work on, as well as extending my career into nutrition with my NTP program. So you're seeing up close and personal how I structure my days and how I want to ensure that I am, getting the rest that I need, that I am also having time in the morning for my morning routine, and that I'm working my professional obligations around my well-being as a human, like as a person who needs to eat every day, as a person who needs to sleep, as a person who has commitments with her partner or her friends. And it's been a game changer for me over the last however many years, like I've been working for myself, to track my time and like where my time is being spent. So anyways, I say all that to say, here I'm putting in like the times of the day that I'm going to eat dinner, even little notes around when I need to prep for 2 days, because I have a very busy day on Tuesday. I have a few different meetings throughout the day. Actually, I have like 4 meetings. That's going to be insane. So basically no work is going to get done on Tuesday, but I want to make sure that I'm still fueled and I'm optimal for all of those meetings. I also go for a walk every evening after dinner. Rashad and I have been doing this for about a year now, and I cannot say enough good things about a walk after dinner. So depending on your situation, depending on where you live, depending on if you have an area that is or is not walkable, I would try to get creative in how you could make this work. I know that it's not the same for everybody. And even if you got an indoor treadmill or something to that effect, like that would be a really, really convenient way to, it's not even just about getting in stepped, it's more about gently activating your digestive tract and keep things moving before you go to sleep. So you're giving that last meal of the day the best shot at absorbing and digesting. So you're going to set yourself up for a better night's rest by going for even a 10-minute walk after dinner. Like it doesn't have to be long. I've blocked an hour out because sometimes Rashad and I are like watching TV or like, but our walks end up being about 40-45 minutes. And it's also a good time for him and I to catch up about the day. Sometimes we got to talk about work because we work together. Sometimes we catch up on life stuff or current events. And it's been a really, really, really good practice for us. So hopefully my calendar gives you a good idea of how you might be able to make sure that the meals that you've outlined and the groceries that you've bought and unpacked and put in your refrigerator and prepped or chopped up, how that stuff is actually going to fit into your schedule. If you know that one day you have a lot of time in the car, maybe you want to make sure that you're packing a lunch or some snacks that don't need to be refrigerated. Or if you have the ability to have a lunch bag that has ice in it, like you're just prepared for the things. And I think that that's what I've been able to really lean into. Maybe it's my type A personality, but just understanding that preparation is the key to not feeling underprepared. Because if you are preparing for chaos, when the chaos hits, you'll be ready to manage it. You know what I'm saying? So I just always want to understand when I'm resting, when I'm going to be able to eat, when I'm going to be able to have like 5 minutes of meditation. Because if I am not my best self, I'm not able to show up optimally for everyone else. And then that causes just like stress and that self-induced chaos. I can't have it. Let me know if you do your calendar in a similar way. I also want to point out that if you need to be very specific in exactly what you're doing on your calendar, do so. I've done this, like I said, for a very long time. So sometimes I'm able to just block the time. However, if you are new to digital calendar management, I would suggest you put specifically what you're doing during that time. So if you block an hour of time to make lunch, what are you making for lunch based on what you just outlined and bought from the grocery store? Does that make sense? So you're saying, okay, for lunch today, I'm doing the marinated herb chicken with white rice. And do you need to soak the rice? Like how long is this going to take you to cook? How long is it going to take you to eat? How many servings are you making? That way you know, okay, well, I'm cooking this, so maybe give me an hour and 15 minutes because I'm going to eat as well at that time. And then I'm going to be able to eat this for lunch the next couple days. You know what I'm saying? So block out your time if you need to on your calendar and be specific. Like use action language and verbs like cook jasmine rice and grilled chicken instead of just putting make lunch. You know what I'm saying? The last things that I'll share with you are just a couple tips on maybe how to prep ahead. So one thing that I've done in the past, I don't do this every day, is to cook all of my meals at the top of the day. So if you're someone who works from home or you work hybrid, so some days that you work from home, I would consider to just give it a shot on a day where you have bandwidth and, all of those things, to cook your meals all at the top of the day, and or to just prep all of the vegetables and like chop everything up and get everything marinated or whatever you need to do for the rest of the meals throughout the day. And that way, because you're working from home and you want to like focus in and like really get into a flow, you're not having to stop and then like think about, okay, well, what do I want for lunch now? Or what's in the refrigerator? Or what, just like plan it all ahead of time in the morning and just get it done. Even though it takes you maybe an hour and a half to make all of those meals in the morning, all you have to do is heat it up later. Like you don't have to return to the kitchen to cook. And then it keeps you from making a sketchy decision and like going down the street to get Chick-fil-A or ordering Uber Eats or whatever it is that you do that you don't want to do. So try to cook in the mornings for sure. Another thing that you can do is to just cook the next meal. So sometimes if I am making breakfast, I'll also make sure I can do whatever I can do to also prepare my lunch for that day. Or if I'm preparing lunch, for instance, like I mentioned this a minute ago, make a couple lunches. Like just make more than one serving if you're okay with leftovers and if that works for your schedule the next day. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and cook some extra vegetables because I would love to just heat this up tomorrow and I don't have to worry about cooking. And the very last note that I wanna make is if you are overhauling like a lot of things in your nutrition routine and your food routine, if you're feeling overwhelmed, that's absolutely normal. I completely understand. Take a deep breath, slow it down a little bit, and consider just taking care of one meal at a time. Pick the meal that you either struggle with the most and attack that first, or if it works better for you to pick the meal that you like the most, focus on that and getting that super consistent. The way I did this about a year and a half ago when I was trying to figure out how to get in a rhythm with cooking much more at home, eating out way less, obviously, and getting comfortable in the kitchen and making sure that like we got food at home is like a lifestyle. I was able to focus on breakfast first. That's my favorite meal of the day. And I locked in on breakfast. I'm like, what are the types of breakfasts that I could have that are sweet? Some are savory, some are more protein forward than the others. And I'm like, how can I make sure that I have breakfast every day and I just don't really have to think about it? So now my breakfasts are on autopilot because I've done it for so long. But I didn't start with like all of my meals at once, trying to do a facelift of like my entire diet. Like it just wasn't gonna work like that because I didn't have the bandwidth for that. Like nobody does when they're starting, a new routine. So, and then if you choose a meal that you struggle with, for instance, for me, it was lunch. I always ended up skipping lunch, or my lunch was just like cheese and crackers because I did not have a plan. And I realized that it was not because I wasn't hungry. It wasn't because I didn't care. It was just like literally because I hadn't set time aside to make a plan for what I was doing for lunch. And I was just waiting until lunch came around that day to decide, oh, well, what am I gonna do today for lunch? And it's like, no, like we have the ability to really critically think and get ahead. Let's plan ahead as much as possible so that way we're not like stuck making a decision on what we're about to eat that's not actually optimal for what our body needs. Because then we end up eating something that's not nutritious and then we have a whole nother set of problems. All right, I'm wrapped with everything that I wanted to share with you. If you would like to go back and watch my video from a month ago where I started this process in April, I started to document this process and then see how like from then to now, I've even evolved my process and I'm gonna continue to do so. Because I really believe that if we are fueling ourselves in the right way, we're setting ourselves up for optimal energy, like calming our inflammation, regulating our mood and hormones, and just literally feeling better. And when we feel better, that's the entire goal. So go back and watch that video if you haven't already. I'll put some links in the description if you want to stay connected or tap into some of the things that I mentioned. And if there's anything in particular that you want me to go into detail a bit more, let me know. I just wanted to make sure that I was elaborating on the previous video a few weeks ago because I felt like there was some more nuances that I could share, but it also was perfect timing to just share the update with how the system has progressed since the last time that I shared that. And yeah, I just really want to take your feedback. So if there's anything that you're going to try, let me know in the comments. Like and comment and subscribe. Share with a friend if you feel like this could be helpful for them. I know it's overwhelming. Keep taking a deep breath. Maybe try it just once a month for the time being. Have some days where you are going to go with the flow. Take it easy. Have the grace on yourself. I promise you, I get it. I was there And now I'm much more consistent with my meal planning and my grocery shopping and all of the things. And I really, really pride myself on being able to hold it down during busy weeks. Even when I travel, I be very on top of things. Okay, so I just haven't traveled in a while, haven't needed to. Okay, I'm yapping at this point. I will see you later. Thank you for watching.